this is the tradition in Burgundy to not really plant by clone, but to have a diversity of plants, and therefore giving more the advantage and the focus on the land, on the terroir itself, rather than on the clone. So I looked for as many clones as I could get from Chardonnay, because Massal's selection, that is a selection of plants that are not specified as clones. In Chardonnay, that was at the time a little bit tricky. And so I looked at as many clones as I could get, and I thought about Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris as being one clone among others. The thinking behind that was that Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris were traditional in the Hautes-Côtes, as they were also in a certain matter in the Côte d'Or. But there was distinctively a tradition of Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris in the Hautes-Côtes section. And so when we come to Aragon and we see that Pinot Gris has such an history in Aragon, as being the white grape variety, and is not yet overcome by Chardonnay. It seems to me that there is something to look at there, and that there is something that is interesting. Especially, you could dismiss it very easily, saying, well, this is not a very qualitative grape. And in a way, it's a pity that it has been oriented towards very cheap wines, and not necessarily very interesting wine. But arguably, one of the best, or maybe the best Pinot Gris I've ever tasted came from Aragon. So it's really this grape variety can do something, and it can really perform well in Aragon. So having also this this habit and this experience with Chardonnay, you cannot deny that Chardonnay brings a nerve to the wine. And at Clos Saint-Philibert, where the terroir is very stony and very cold, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris brings a lot of stuff, a lot of texture, volume to the wine. So that's interesting in that context. But also experimenting with this and some other small experiments I made, you really need Chardonnay to give it a nerve, to give it a little bit more interesting interest. When, for example, I do a little bit of crément for the family. Yeah. If you do it with Pinot Noir only, it's dull. It's dull. Pinot Noir, I mean, it's too ripe, whatever, but it's dull. You really need the Chardonnay to give it a little bit of zip, of nerve, of structure, of acidity, of fragrance, and so on. So I think that, you know, in a way, these are excellent blending tools, Pinot Gris and Chardonnay, because if you have that good a material with Pinot Gris, you can certainly have a very interesting wine, but adding some Chardonnay and making a blend of the two can really result in a big, powerful wine but with a good, you know, that is something that will not be dull, something that will not be really a little bit too over the top and too tiring. The heaviness of Pinot Gris can be a little bit overcoming in the palate. So I think that it really is interesting to try to blend these two grapes, especially if we have a very nice Pinot Gris material, which is the case. It can have some length. It can have some really be a great wine, and adding Chardonnay to it is just bringing that wine in another dimension. So it's in that respect that we're doing an alliance, I guess. Yeah, it's sedimentary soil, but we're finding that in terms of climate, with the high elevation, we have these white grape varieties are actually ripening slowly. And I think this is important to stress that this is not what is difficult to manage with any grape variety, but especially with Chardonnay, is when it ripens overnight. You wait for it, it's underripe, and all of a sudden it's overripe. And so, of course, the vintage plays a big part in this, but the having checked that it doesn't happen every year. It happens under certain special conditions. It doesn't happen every year is very important. So it shows that we have at Bishop Creek a place that is good also for Chardonnay, because it allows the Chardonnay and the Pinot Gris not to become too dull and too sweet in no time. And this is what we absolutely want. What I was saying is that it does not necessarily ripen quickly every year. Generally, it ripens very slowly, very progressively. And we've had, and of course it can happen because when it's hot, and you cannot do anything with this. But usually what we've seen is a very progressive ripening of both Chardonnay and Pinot Gris, which indicates that we have the time to pick and do what we want and really target what we want with these wines and grapes, and not totally have to pick, because it's time. It's absolutely time to pick, and you cannot really wait for 2 more days to have a little bit more of this or that. But you have to pick. That's all. So these vintages do exist and will exist because vintage is vintage, but it's not generally the case. And this indicates that this is a good place to grow these white varieties. It's funny. I love the wine. I really love the wine. I see that the people are a bit taken aback, and when I say people, it's also wine professionals. They are a bit taken aback because this is a beast that they don't know, and they're saying, "What's this?" And if they judge this as a Chardonnay, oh, this is really a bit heavy. This is weird. What's going on? And if they judge this as a Pinot Gris, they don't necessarily recognize the grape, and they don't necessarily find the easy to swallow and to forget Pinot Gris they're used to. Unfortunately, with Oregon Pinot Gris, with a few exceptions, as I mentioned, but people who are making serious Pinot Gris to age and last and be a serious wine, unfortunately, there are not that many in Oregon. Those who do are very successful. So we're taking another path, I guess, because of that small experience I have here in Burgundy. But I think, I think it's an interesting one too. Once you've you've opened a little bit your mind and not decided to judge this as a Chardonnay or as the standard Pinot Gris you're used to in Oregon. It has some of the both. It has a bit more length and nerve and acidity than the Pinot Gris, and is more serious. And it has some of the tones and some of the aromatics of Pinot Gris. If you think of Chardonnay and you smell this, oh, that's weird. That's bizarre. But I really love it. It's that creaminess with an acidic finish is what I like, and sometimes it has a little bit of a little bit of a petroleum taste that you also find in Riesling that I really love. But of course, if you think of Chardonnay having a petroleum taste, you say, what's wrong? What's going? It's not like this. And I think that we have a wine which is really pleasing on the palate, and is a great experience. Is the experience coming from experimenting it in Burgundy, and trying also to capitalize on Oregon tradition about Pinot Gris, and in a way we need also to add Chardonnay because we have so little of it. We could try to make a Pinot Gris on its own if we had a bigger vineyard, which is not the case. So it's also out of necessity. I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing to mention, that it's easier for us to deal with a cuvée that is 2 or 3 or 4 barrels instead of just one. And I think that adding Chardonnay also gives the wine a little bit more drinkability, even though you are adding a little bit structure, acidity, nerve, something a bit harsher, so to speak. Pinot Gris in itself is so big and fat that actually I think for me to enjoy it, you would have to age this for 10 years so that you lose a little bit of the fatness, of the cloyiness of the grape over time. And so by bringing a little bit of Chardonnay, you're bringing more aromatics, you're bringing more joy and lightness to the wine, and make it more appreciable when it's young.